400 people, including children, have been killed since November by Ethiopian security forces responding to protests in the country's largest region, Oromiyaa. That's the verdict of a recent report by Human Rights Watch, which says the 35 million plus Oromo, Ethiopia's biggest ethnic group, have been politically, economically and culturally marginalized for decades, with thousands detained or disappeared. The Ethiopian government, though, says the protests have been hijacked by armed groups, including the Oromo Liberation Front, which it considers a terrorist organization. So what's the truth? Joining me to debate this in the arena are Getachew Reda, Ethiopia's Communication Affairs Minister, and Lencho Bati, an executive committee member of the Oromo Democratic Front and a lecturer in African Affairs. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me in the arena. Getachew Reda, your government has been accused of violently suppressing Oromo protests inside of Ethiopia. You're on record saying your security forces have acted in a very professional and responsible manner. Human Rights Watch say 400 people killed, others detained, disappeared. Surely that's not responsible behavior, that's criminal behavior, many would say.
You see, the saddest part of having to respond to such kinds of queries is that we are dealing with people who are killed. So to have to haggle with people in terms of what numbers are the exact figures, that's the most painful part of my job. Because even one person killed, especially when it comes to avoidable deaths, is one too many. Having said that, though, when you have Human Rights Watch, which issued the same figures back in November when the conflicts were, I would say, at the formative stage, still, I mean, I'm surprised that they haven't revised their numbers. They still stick to 400. But as we often say, Human Rights Watch is not interested in the reality on the ground, nor does it have any representative here on the ground. And more often than not, they just pluck their numbers out of thin air.
Lencho, the government say protests have spiraled out of control, imperil the future of the state, hijacked by armed groups. You're Oromo, you've been campaigning for Oromo rights. What's your response?
The government's brutal crackdown on Oromo, this is not the first time. This kind of report is not the first report, it's not the second report, it's not the third report. It is the 25th report. It has been going on for the last 25 years. The Oromo people have a legitimate cause. They have legitimate grievances. So this has nothing to do with terrorism. This is a legitimate cause because the Oromo people want representation. So,
Lencho, you're now with the Oromo Democratic Front, which is a non-violent group. But I believe you were once also with the Oromo Liberation Front, which is a violent group, which openly advocates, practices violence against the state, which has proudly talked about killing collaborators, civilians. Can you see why the Ethiopian government, why any government, might want to crack down on such a group violently?
But, I mean, the Oromo Democratic Front believes in peaceful political struggle, and we also accept the Constitution. We want to be part of the process.
You do, but you accept there are other groups, including your former group, which doesn't.
There are other peaceful political, Oromo political groups in the country also. For example, their leadership, Bakala Garba is in prison. You know,
what do you do about the violent groups?
Look,
these violent groups, the violence is the excuse the government used to crack on the Oromos. And the Oromo Liberation Front itself was part of the government initially, part of the transitional government.
You're using terrorism as an excuse like many governments do, says Lencho.
No, we're not using terrorism as an excuse because evidence is about people being involved in terrorist acts are legion. I agree with him, the only option for this country, the only viable option for this country is for people to join the peaceful struggle. And I honestly,
Getachew, is there a space for peaceful struggle in Ethiopia today, given you have journalists in exile, newspapers shut down, no media freedom, according to Reporters Without Borders? Ethiopia comes 142 out of 180 countries when it comes to media freedom. There is no space for peaceful protest, many would say.
Well, look, my friend, whatever the superlatives there, what we believe is there is a space. We have problems here and there. Like I said, there is a problem of tradition. There is a problem of culture. We have a government which is trying to change the tradition of a country that has been around for thousands of years, if you will. Now, we have problems here and there. I cannot vouch for every police officer which goes about doing some stupid stuff. What I can say is we have a political platform that makes sure people who are advancing peaceful political agendas would not have any problem whatsoever.
Okay, Lencho,
with all due respect, I disagree, Mr. Getachew. The Ethiopian parliament now 100% controlled by EPRDF, and there is no free press, and all oppositions are either exiled and the others are in prison. And as, for example, the Oromo Democratic Front, ourselves, we declared peaceful means of political struggle. We went home, but we were told to leave the country. There was no space.
Getachew, is Lencho welcome in Ethiopia?
Yes, he's more than welcome. I know Lencho and his comrades have been negotiating with the government to come here. I don't see any problem for them to come here.
Do you publicly today declare that the government is ready to welcome ODF to the country to participate in peaceful political struggle?
The government is more than ready to welcome ODF as long as ODF breaks its ties with the terrorist organization called OLF. I know
we broke our ties with OLF long time ago.
We will be more than glad to welcome ODF as long as it abides by the constitution of the country, as long as it abides by the rules of the country.
Why the president of the ODF was left to leave the country after 2 days of his arrival?
Well, if you guys are interested in publicity stunts, you are entitled to it. But as far as I know,
Getachew, let me ask you this. Let me ask you a wider question. Let me ask you a wider question. You are with the EPRDF, which is the governing party. Can you tell us, can you tell the viewers, how many seats in democratic Ethiopia the EPRDF and its allies won in last year's parliamentary elections?
100%. 100%.
Do you know of any countries that are considered to be democratic where one party and its allies controls 100% of the legislature?
At the risk of sounding stupid, I would tell you we have an electoral system which awards seats on a first-past-the-post basis. So, I mean, nobody would accuse the British system of being undemocratic, but they have that system. But fortunately for them, they have.
They don't have 100% of seats for one party and its allies.
It's not like we're going to apportion parliamentary seats on an arbitrary basis.
Well, the process that led to 100% victory for APRDF is this is systematic marginalization, systematic exclusion of other oppositions, and the people were terrorized, and the people were not free to vote and support the party which they think represent them. So this is systematic work by the government. They ensure that they have 100% control over the state.
Lencho, let me ask you this. The Oromo people, who you say are marginalized, systematically excluded from power, they do self-govern in their own state, Oromiyaa. There is an Oromo People's Democratic Organization which governs in that state. Security forces are drawn from the Oromo community. This is a system of ethnic federalism, I believe it's called, in Ethiopia. How can you say you're completely excluded when you have a state and you have a regional government?
This Oromo People Democratic Organization, OPDO, is created from the former POWs during the war against the communist regime. I have spoken to two ex-presidents of the Oromiyaa region who are member of OPDO, several ambassadors who left the government. They say that party is controlled by EPRDF. They don't have an autonomy. They are just a facade. They are just to serve the interest of the government.
Let Getachew respond. A facade. Oromo representation is a facade.
You see, I mean, the problem with these people, Lencho's organization, not just ODF, but the OLF, has been around for the last 50 years. 50 years is a long time. They have never done anything for the Oromo people. They have been flagging every issue in the name of the Oromos, but they have never done anything.
Is it not the case that the Tigrayan minority, which I believe you're a member of, which makes up 6% of the Ethiopian population, dominates the leadership of your party, dominates public life in Ethiopia, is basically the elite, while the Oromo, which represents 1 out of every 3 Ethiopians, has been disproportionately, historically marginalized from public life? Is that not fair?
This is not true, because this is not true. Simply because it's been repeated ad nauseum doesn't make it true.
Okay, Lencho.
The EPRDF, the TPLF control the foreign ministry, control the defense, control the securities, and control all key government positions. There is no question that this is a Tigrayan controlled government. They have to open up. They must open the political space. Otherwise, Ethiopia is sitting on a time bomb.
Whether or not the interest of the Oromos is protected has little, if any, to do with who controls the foreign office, who controls this and that. The army is composed of both Oromos, all Oromos, Amharas, Tigrayans, and whatever. This is a country that belongs to all the nations.
Lencho, even the security forces that you're accusing of human rights abuses contain Oromos, don't they?
But
you can't just blame non-Oromos for this.
Let me tell you. I mean, this is the issue of state formation, state building.
Okay,
an issue
well, we're running out of time, so on that subject...
harmonizing.
Fine, we're running out of time, so on that subject, let me finish by asking you this. What do you want to see happen in Ethiopia? What is your vision for an Ethiopia in which power is shared equitably? How would it have to look to you?
The government must open up, allow the political oppositions to enter the political space, free journalists, free political prisoners, and sit down and negotiate.
Last word, what's wrong with that vision which Lencho outlines for Ethiopia?
There is nothing wrong with that vision, except that he's overstating his case in some ways. But all I would advise my friend Lencho is to make sure they have their houses clean, especially with ODF, and come to this country and do themselves a favor.
Gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you both for joining me in the arena. That's our show. Up Front will be back next week.